Hey, good evening, everybody. Dr. Brett Brimhall here from Phoenix, and we got Dr. Bly Hatch from Surprise just across the valley from me. I'm excited to spend some time with you tonight and just give you guys some really fun insights. I guess I'll be just always a blast to be able to be on the call with Dr. Hatch. So he's actually my first cousin. We've known each other a really long time. And one thing I've really admired him is just the amount of dedication and effort he puts into keeping him self-sharp in what he's learning. Like just this last week, we are talking about a couple different books that he was reading, and he's been in practice now. What do we say, 31 years?
31 years.
31 years, and this guy has practiced 31 years. So he didn't practice the same way 31 times. He's practiced 31 different years with the knowledge and expertise and learnings he's had. He's practiced for a lot of years. He runs an integrated practice over in the west side of Phoenix here. Actually two practices. And so just excited to be able to spend some time with us. We want to talk about some really interesting things tonight. We're going to talk about, chronic disease and kind of chronic conditions and what role we can play in that. But before we jump into that, like I wanted you guys to get to know Dr. Hatch a little bit. Uh, he has 6 kids, all of them, how do you say it?
All of them are boys except for 5.
All of them boys except for 5. So bless his wife's heart and just super passionate about it. And how grandfather of how many?
What's that? Oh, I have 10 grandbabies.
10 grandbabies. And he loves being with them. His truck is called Captain Fly. That's the name of his
Oh,
license
no,
plate.
no, it's called Papa Fly.
Papa Fly now?
Yeah, it's Papa Fly changes since you've seen it.
Dang it. Okay,
Gotta be a
well,
Papa now.
he was a captain, now he's a papa. So, but just a huge passion for helping people. And we were having a conversation last week about um, the lives that he's touched. And I'm just excited for you guys to get a chance to hear from him because we're both licensed as chiropractors, but we practice functional medicine. And that's really how we practice really both of our practices. And when people come to see us, it's typically for chronic things. And how many times you've been told, Dr. Hatch, like this, you're my last stop. I've seen everybody else.
I cannot count how many times. It's been thousands.
Thousands. And so what we're going to guys is give you some insights on, what chronic conditions are and why they show up. And you may have been told that it's in your genes, you can't change it. You may have been told that my grandma had it or my aunt had it, I'm going to have it. You may have been told it can't get any better. Like it's just going to get worse. Right. And if that's the case, we hopefully you can share some things with you that can change that opinion. Just like I was talking to a guy tonight, and he says, well, I heard that everybody has prostate problems as they get older. And I said, well, it's not a magical age that anything shows up. It's a biological age. So let's talk about what the process looks like and what we can do to change that. Um, so Dr. Hatch, if you would kind of give us a little insight, because I know you have a unique practice in obviously being in chiropractic, but functional medicine and even the integrated practice. A little bit about like, the commonalities that you see in these chronic conditions and maybe some of those chronic conditions that people have that you kind of work with.
Okay, so over the last 3 years, I've actually kind of shifted my paradigm in my practice. I actually used to do chiropractic with functional medicine. Stepped into a new world here in the last 7, 8 years, I guess. It seems like 3 years. Time goes by faster than you think. And we've actually started integrating a lot of stem cell therapy, which was really a big thing, PRP, different things of that nature. Love it. But I got into another realm, which was diabetes here in the last year and a half, and taking people with chronic diabetic problems and using insulin as a hormone, not as a drug, and helping people come off of their slowly reduce their medications and get back in. I had a lady today. She's down to once a month with us. We were just visiting today, talking about how her health care was and where she's at and just how much better she's feeling. And, you don't realize the lives you impact until you find out somebody's blood sugar is running up in the 300s and now they're running around 120 on average. 126 is where she's running on average now. And her life is gaining back. She's lost a lot of weight. She's still carrying a little bit of weight, but she's doing amazing things. And she says, man, I feel better than I ever have. And she says, I think I'm going to live another 10, 15 years, you know? So for somebody that's in their retirement years and they're getting a life back, it's amazing. She's doing things she hadn't done in 15 years, 20 years.
It's fun to see those type of changes take place. And one of the things I know you and I have talked a lot about over the years is that a lot of these chronic things that you see, and he lives in the West Valley. In the West Valley, there's a lot of older people. Like that's kind of the big retirement community. So he's treated, really, if you talk about a geriatric practice, like even though you treat a ton of baby, like you treat a lot of the older population. And so he sees a lot of these, like, so what are some of the primary, like, people that are having different things? What do they show up your office in? Like, what do they
You
have?
know,
What type of things do you see?
so the biggest things we see chronic arthritis type pain, a lot of musculoskeletal issues. You know, people coming in for low back for to seeing the chiropractor. I see a lot of chronic digestive issues, a lot of constipation, a lot of diarrhea, a lot of things that are just bloating, gassy. They're not feeling well. They just can't figure out what's going on in their health. We see heart disease, diabetes. Okay. Maybe you see those types of things, and they've been everywhere looking for answers, and they end up at your doorstep last. That's the thing. We're always usually last step when they show up here. Um, so it's been quite interesting as we go through and we start working with those people with chronic long-term lung issues, that they've been everywhere. They've seen every specialist. And I can't tell you how many people have been to Mayo, have been to, you know, the different clinics around there looking for answers, and they are not getting those answers always. They're getting more prescriptions most of the time, and they're getting more tests done and more things to happen. And you know, it's kind of crazy because here's something that I find really interesting. In the last, since the 1940s and 50s, the number one cause of death in the 1940s and 50s was heart disease. Guess what? In 2022, guess what the one cause of death was?
Heart disease.
Death was heart disease. Okay, nobody has changed. And we continue to die of heart disease. We also have the number two cause of death in the United States is the same too, and which is cancer, right? Which is another problem that's going on, an inflammatory disease process. And we start looking at those things and we start saying, okay, what is commonality here? Now, something that's changed in the 1940s and 50s was the third cause of disease, which back then in the 40s and 50s, it was actually death of children at an early age. Okay. I mean, infantile death. Guess what? It's now diabetes, the number three cause of death in today's world. So again, another inflammatory disease, because we figured out how to save infants' lives with all the technology we have, but we haven't found the secret key, quote unquote, of how we help people live a healthier, more vibrant life as they age.
If I heard you right, you just told me that the top three causes of, and I'm going to call it, we call it disease, but the top three of why people struggle in life, don't feel well, don't perform well, and then maybe die prematurely is heart disease, cancer, and diabetes are top three.
Correct.
And you're telling me all three of those are linked to inflammation.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So if that's the secret sauce, right? And you also said arthritis. So arthritis, I think, is the number one debilitating disease that we have, chronic condition. Number one debilitate, which means you lose function, which sucks. Okay. So all four of those are directly tied to inflammation. All right. So because that is such a big deal, what can us humans do to reduce our inflammation? Like, or what causes inflammation, and what are the ways you encourage people to change that?
You know, the first thing I always go after people with, I always talk to them about it, is, you know, we can give them all the supplements, all the nutrition, all the activators we want, but there's one key factor they have to start with, and that's a change of lifestyle. Okay, we got to start with their diet. We got to tell them, hey, you know what? You need to back off on the breads, the sugars, the bad fats, the trans fats, and different fats that create problems. We got to bring you back into helping the body function how it's supposed to, so we can actually get it back into its normal homeostasis mode and back into functioning correctly. So diet's a big thing. Eating more vegetables, better quality proteins, which could come in different forms, depending on if you're vegan or if you're, you know, a carnivore type person, and also drinking water. We don't drink enough water in this country right now, or probably anywhere in the world, but that's the things we need to do. And adding fatty acids back in.
What are some of the common maybe things that people are eating that they don't realize cause inflammation?
You know, number one is people bread. People don't realize that bread creates inflammation. I mean, I would think in this time that people would think, okay, bread would create that problem. Uh, my favorite food group, and I'll be honest with you, ice cream. You know, I mean, I love ice cream. It's my favorite food group. It's its own food group. But
And chocolate, guys. So if you need
yeah,
to get a hold of Hatch, it's
yeah. Well,
chocolate.
let's get better. Yeah, chocolate is my favorite ice. So, so when we look at that, eating high sugary foods, things that have a lot of bad fats or not good fats for us, and high sugars that create free radical damage or damage to a cell or on a cellular level. So we start adding that in. Um, Drinking a lot of sodas. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, there's more sodas drank now than there ever has been. When I go home at night, I always get mesmerized by the line at the McDonald's on the Bell Road of how long it is. It goes out into the main road, kind of clogs up traffic because people think that's a good source of food, right? And it's all processed and it's all pre-manufactured and has a lot of toxins with it. So those are the things I see people eating on a regular basis, that are creating problems. And I know people love coffee in the morning. But as long as Starbucks is in business, I will always be in business because the excitotoxins of the mocha mocha java javas that they put in their coffees and their drinks and their chocolates, they put those things in it. And it's excitotoxins, and so those create inflammation in the body.
What are some of the things that when people are having these battles, I mean, obviously lifestyle, like that's like it's almost worse than taking away the kid, right? When you try to change like lifestyle with their sugars and diet and stuff like that. How do you help people make that transition? Like how do you help them make that transition? It's like, okay, this is a big deal, you got to change it.
Yeah. So we got to, depending on what it is, we've got to actually address what's going on with them. First off, we give them a diet. I start out with their diet. That's the first thing I start with. Okay. I give them a diet. I say, this is what we need foods to enjoy, foods to avoid, I like to call it. It's not just written out like that. There's a whole bunch of things of how they can prepare. And I give them some references of where they can go get cookbooks and different things like that to start eating better, start doing things. So that's the first lifestyle I start with those guys. All right. Second lifestyle I start with them, I says, you got to get moving. Okay. Lack of movement, lack of being able to get things circulating in their body. It doesn't matter what you put in your body. If it's not getting circulated throughout the body, you're just sitting in front of a computer, sitting in front of a TV, sitting in front of your phone. I mean, number one cause of most problems today is everybody wants to stay on their phone and do all the scrolling. They're not moving. They're just stuck in life. And so when we're stuck, we don't move. We end up with inflammation in our body. We get chronic illness. So
curious, like, cause you were asking me a little bit, like, does stress have any effect on inflammation?
Stress has a tremendous amount of that. That's the biggest thing that causes all inflammation in the body. And that stress doesn't mean it's just we're thinking of emotional stress. That's what most people think of, right? When they think of stress. I'm not emotionally stressed. I have patients tell me that all the time. Why am I not feeling well? Okay, my life's great. Well, you're not doing things, you're not eating. So it can be physiological stress, dietary stress, or it can be electromagnetic stress. They're spending too much time in front of their televisions, telephones, computers, and they're creating a lot of issues like that.
Just from the bottom line, everybody, just so keep that in mind. So there are just things that we have control over. So control the controllables and start working on improving them. Because think about your body, you're going to eat every day the rest of your life, probably, unless you're fasting here and there. And you're probably going to be around humans the rest of your life, right? And you're probably going to be drinking water of some kind. So start putting yourself in a position where you're reducing those stress loads on your cells. And then we're going to talk a little bit now about some ways that you can apply technology to improve your body's physiology. So there's what's called a chronological age and a biological age. So for instance, I'll be 50 this year, but my biological age is much younger than my chronological age based upon what I do. So it's just like a brand new car. How many miles is that thing going to go? Right. And how hard are those miles? Dr. Hatch is young. He's 60, 60 this year?
I'm 60.
60. But he's had some hard miles at times, right? So I want to talk a bit about activation here, Dr. Hatch. Tell me what are your top 2 to 3 activators you want people to do to help with this? Obviously, we say reduce their stressors, change the diet, but when it comes to nutraceuticals, which I know you do, what are the top couple activators you want people that they can incorporate? Like none of the things you have to do, but if I'm going to get more bang for my buck, like I want to incorporate things that are gonna enhance my body's biological ability to repair like I did when I was younger.
I agree 100%. You know, when we look at that, so if I was to give, you're only gonna let me have three. Holy crap, I could go through a whole handful. We'll keep it down to three
Well,
then.
we're keeping it
Okay.
to the
Ma-
top four. Remember we said we're
yeah,
talking about
okay.
arthritis, you know,
Yeah.
those ones. Come on.
So, you know, because those are all inflammatory disease processes, right? Whatever you want to call it, there's over 240, 200 and something disease processes are all related to inflammation, cancer, heart disease, arthritis. It all has the same factor. They're all there. So what we want to do is we want to actually, we have supplementation or nutrients that we need to put back into our body to replenish certain minerals, vitamins, and different things that we're having to give us a little bit of maybe some support with our digestive system, some digestive enzymes, and some flora. But one of the top things we want to do is we want to actually be able to flip on switches in our body. Okay. And I heard about this actually 30, 40 years ago, listening to a guy by the name of Jeff Bland talk about it and teach us those types of things. If you remember Jeff, it was really boring. He used to use the overhead projector and talk about it all the time, but phenomenal stuff I learned back then, right? And he talked about these pathways in the body, and it was great, but we didn't know how to activate them. Okay, without giving people like 300 supplements to take home and try to activate these pathways. Well, in 2000, what, 10 years ago, you came to me and you introduced me to some different technology I knew was out there, but I didn't know there was anything made for this. And Dr. Brimhall introduced me to Carrie Williams, and I heard a story that Carrie told me about her son struggling with learning disabilities and how he was no longer on the spectrum. And Dr. Brimhall had been seeing him, and I had that second party validation with Brett at that point, and with Carrie. And so I said, this is interesting. So we want to be able to activate pathways in our body, and there's switches in our bodies called neurorefractive, or NRF2 is one of them that I want to talk about. This is something that you introduced me to, the first thing I got introduced to in this company, and then this thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. But you know what was the best thing about it is I had a daughter that had learning disabilities. Okay. And she was struggling in school. She could do math like no tomorrow. She could draw a picture like no tomorrow. She could play a piano, but she could not read something and tell you what she read 5 minutes later. She had to have an IEP teacher there. And so when I started looking at that, I said, okay, I don't know how I can help her. So when my dad was passing away and I met up with you guys and I got to listen to that story, I started my daughter on that about 2 weeks later. And 15 days on the Nerf2 products, the Protandim Nerf2 and the Axio. She met me at the door. Okay. And I want to tell this story because this is the power of this pathway. The Protandim Nerf2 is for the pathway of reducing inflammation on the brain. The Axio for reducing inflammation in the body. The Axio is for reducing inflammation on the brain. So my daughter started on this, and all of a sudden she came home and she held a paper up in front of me and said, Dad, I got an A on my paper today. I didn't have any help from any of my IEP teachers. Okay. So activating pathways are really, really important. That changed my life. That changed her life. And it continues to change our life throughout things. So when I look at that, those are things I look at. So that's one of the first things is activating those pathways that we need to deal with, helping the body work.
It's Nerf2, guys. So what that is, that pathway, it regulates the inflammatory process. If you're not familiar with activation, people familiar with supplementation, think about like a pathway as an assembly line in your body designed to produce an end result, which for instance, this would be what's called glutathione, or big cleanup guy. So in our body, and the way we are studying with Dr. Jeff Bland, he'd say, well, you have this pathway and it has 10 steps in it. And if I add more magnesium, I can get more out of this step. But with activation, you get like all of the assembly lines producing at maximum capacity. So you're able to produce a lot more end product. That's activation. Supplementations, you're just giving a few more ingredients to allow a pathway to work more efficiently, but you're not creating or making more pathways work. And on Nerf2 would be my number one. That's the one that's going to help your body basically kind of clean up the trash. And then the secondary for me would be, for you, I'm sure, the Nerf1, which is getting your body to make more energy.
So, yeah. And so, you know, and that's exactly what caught my attention. And I said, okay, I'm all in. because I wanted to figure out what was going on with this. Okay.
So I want to ask you a question. So I'm gonna
Okay.
steal your thunder a little bit here. So so do you guys want to talk a little bit about activated liquid collagen? So one thing we try to say, well, what tissue is involved that we're trying to help? So if you're on here and you say, I wonder if this will help me with X. Okay. So whether it's you're talking about joints or whether you're talking about skin or whether you're talking about, blood sugar, it's all inflammatory based. So if we can work on that NRF2 pathway, we're going to improve that to some extent. All right. How are you going to experience that? I don't know. But then my second question is like, what tissue is needing repaired? Right. So what tissue is involved that's needing repair? Because if that's the case, if I can support that particular process, I'm going to get better results. Because I know a lot of us have, we've seen a lot of arthritis and stuff like that. And people think, well, it never will get better.
Right. And they don't think anything's going to get better. Right. So when that actually activates, it clears a lot of stuff. So I've always had chronic low back pain, even being on NRF2.
But why? Why? You got to tell the story.
Okay. So
in
1985, I was working construction. I had some scaffolding collapse with me. I had a 12-foot fall, and my fall was broken by one of my laborers that was with me. And I ended up herniating the 4th and 5th and 3rd lumbar disc. Okay, to the point that I was out of work for about 2 years. I was able to get back on my feet, seeing Dr. Brett's dad, Dr. John Brimhall, who actually worked with me, treated me, and got me back on my feet so I could go return back to work. And there were certain things I couldn't do. I was always in a lot of pain. If I bent over too long or if I sat too long, riding in the car just about killed me. I used to always stick a wallet under my leg. But that's because I got injured. I became a chiropractor because Dr. Brimhall helped me and got me back on my feet, and I was doing it really well, but I still had that chronic pain always. Okay. So that was the start of that. In 2022, I'm going to just share this story. I was in a lot of pain. It was December. I think it's because I was spending a lot of money for Christmas. I'm sure that's what it was. It was probably more emotional than anything, but I was in terrible pain. I started worrying that something was going wrong. So my associate doctor, he took an x-ray of me, and we'll show you a picture here in a bit, not right away, but in a bit of what the difference was. But I had no disc space at L5S1, no disc space at L4, L5, and very little disc space at L3, L4. And I sat there going, oh, no wonder I'm hurting. Okay. And so I got through another phase of that, increased some nutrients and different things. And then I think it was in February of 2023, I went and listened to this board certified dermatologist, plastic surgeon type lady, and she talked about collagen. And I said, I do collagen in my office all the time. I've been taking collagen forever. I've got a powder collagen. Anybody do that? You got a powder collagen, but it's not helping my back. But, I said, okay, I want to look younger. I'm getting close to 60. I want to keep looking younger, and I want to continue to increase my longevity, because we have a lot of longevity in our family, except for the last generation, right? Which I think has been the effects of some of the oxidative stress. And so when I started looking at that, I said, okay, I'll get on it and try it. So I started taking it mid-June, July. I started losing a lot of weight pretty quickly. Kind of got me a little worried. Okay. But I kept asking Brett one question. I says, I have no pain with this stuff. What's going on? I'm seeing less and less pain. And I knew that there were some studies being done on this liquid collagen. And I said, why am I not having pain? He says, I don't know. We don't know yet. We don't have any information yet. I'll let you know later. So it kept bothering him. And so I went from a size 36 down to a size 30 in my pants size. And I was like, okay. But I went and I had a bunch of stuff checked out because I was worried about other stuff, right? Because I was thinking, okay, crazy stuff going on, losing weight too quickly. But what was crazy, my associate doctor, he says to me, well, let's take another x-ray and just see what's going on. Okay, so we took an x-ray, and we'll show that here in a few minutes. But I just thought, wow, is this crazy? Here we go. If I want to, Brett's going to show it right now. So if you look at the 2022 right in here, the very bottom arrow down there there is no disc space there. There's a little tiny right at the front, but that's because I'm hyperextended in that area. Very little disc space at L3, L4, L3 area, and L3 and L2 area, there's a little bit of disc space, no disc space in there. So when we took the x-ray in 2023, if you look at that, and I don't know if you can scan,
Right here, this is
scan on that,
2022. This is
that
the
disc space,
L5
you can
space.
start seeing a little bit of disc space in there,
And then
right?
here, this is 2023. You can see there's actually space all the way to the back.
back. And now you see it a little more up in there. And so somebody the other day said to me, why is it so white in there? I said, because I think my body's still remodeling that area, helping it get back into a more healthy mode. That was one of the things that I got a lot of activity going on there, but I have zero pain now. So that's what actually excited me. Then when I seen this study come out on it that says it reduces inflammation due to osteoarthritis, guess what? It started answering a lot of questions for me.
Yeah. So if
And
you
it
guys
had
want to
some
have,
other factors in there that were also amazing. So
yeah, which is crazy, and that's nothing to expect it too. It's just like I'm feeling better, like my body's feeling better, and yeah, we didn't expect, like I would not have expected to retake an X-ray and say, hey, there's an increase in disc space. That's nothing we typically see. And his back, right? That's not a pretty back when it comes to like an X-ray. He's a pretty guy, but that's not a pretty back, right? But he was hurting, and he'd been hurting for years. But so you're saying after really almost 40 years of back pain, that the pain is less now that it's been a really long time, and the only difference you made was just activated collagen,
yes, that's
which is
exactly all I did. And it was,
which is fantastic. So what this kind of changed my mentality, 'cause I've been hearing this from other people that I know that have low back stuff, and so to see it, yeah, obviously to feel better is great, but to see the changes is super significant. And you've only been on it really now about a year and a half-ish, maybe a year and a few
yeah,
months.
yeah.
So imagine
And
what might happen over the next 3 to 5 years, what his body might do. And so if you actually, if you want to have some fun, so in the United States, we cannot say this affects osteoarthritis, just so you know that. But the Canadian formula, their laws allow them to say it's improved osteoarthritis. It's kind of fascinating, right? So if you want to look at the Canadian website, it actually says it's kind of cool, just to be able to see that. But I love what you kind of shared with us, Dr. Hatch. The fact is, like, the commonality between all of these conditions that most of us are struggling with as we get older or we experience life, and unfortunately, we're seeing younger and younger individuals with these chronic conditions, whether that's diabetes or cardiovascular issues or lung issues, or arthritis. Like, you're seeing a lot more of it, even in younger generations. And if the commonality is inflammation, and we now have ways to improve or regulate that better, like, everybody could benefit, right? But if we want to take it to another level, especially in that, anything that involves collagen, if we add that activated collagen to it, would be a huge way of doing that.
yeah. And you know what's amazing? So I've had some of my patients I've started on this, right? Especially those that are on my diabetic program. I've started a couple of I got a couple of type ones that are having, they've had it since childhood. And what's amazing is to watch not only their skin change, but their overall body improving and healing, and their A1Cs improving. Now, is it partly the treatment we're doing? Yes, it very much is. Is it partly the collagen starting to help rebuild and help support the body like it is? Yes, I'm sure it is. I can't say that for a fact, but I can see and talk with my patients and see what's going on, and hear their stories that they're sharing with me. That's phenomenal when I'm watching this going, changing the body and helping the body get well. So the body has the innate ability to heal itself when we take the bad things out and put the good things in.
It's awesome. Any last minute thoughts for us on this? Like, I love everything you shared, and it's powerful. People can kind of start working on reducing inflammation through diet, lifestyle, and applying this technology.
People are looking to stay healthy and get healthy, right now. And I can tell you that just from my clinic. We're busy here in our functional medicine clinic, and it's very interesting. So when they're looking for that, I can tell you we have answers that others don't have that can help them get well. So if you're hearing this for the first time, get back with that person that shared it with you and ask them a couple of questions, and then give it some time, because it will take a little bit of time, because you've probably been rough on your body like I was over the years.
guys, appreciate you being on here tonight. There may be other questions you have. Just if you can't get back to the person that invited you, they'll try to answer them the best they can, or reach out to one of us. And just know, like, your level of how well you feel is directly proportionate to your level of activation. And the more you learn about this, and you start applying it, the better results you can get. So Dr. Hatch, I really appreciate you taking time to be with us tonight, give us your expertise and knowledge and your funness. And just looking forward to working more and helping more people with you.
All right. I am. Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all jumping on today.
Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.